They want attacking purposeful football all the time. Now we've got our backs against the wall and we're going to fight, and we're going to fight hard. You've got to show me all the guts and all the determination you've got in your body. You've got to inspire me.
A marvellous kick. That's as good as you'll ever see. And puts Player back in front.
From inside the centre square, Boy's kicked the goal. Boy's kicked the goal. From inside the centre. I can't believe that.
Hey Pack, welcome to the Brownlow Autopsy edition of Danny Boyd, which is a podcast about the greatest football club known to any living thing. That is the Footscray Football Club, Proprietary Limited. They trade as Western Bulldogs. I'm Danny McGinlay. I'm usually joined by Tom Boyd, and I sort of am, but he's on the injured list today. He's Boydy, why don't you tell the listeners, how you going, mate?
Oh, mate, I'm the 28-year-old going on 50, I think, at this stage in my life. After many years of back injuries, I've got what I believe to be a herniated disc in my back at the moment, which basically means I think that, like, the way they describe discs in your back is like a jam donut, and the jam donut is essentially used to be a shock absorber for your spine, right? Yeah,
I'm with you so far.
When you jump and what happens when there's a rupture in the jam donut is that the jam comes out, would you believe? And in that scenario, it leaks onto your nerves, which is what has happened to me, I think. And it means that my whole entire leg is being affected by pain and strange feelings.
So hang on, you've hurt your back, but it's your leg copping the pain.
It's like a nervous referral, I think, is essentially what's going on. I'm all banged up, mate. All banged up.
What caused this?
MRI this afternoon.
What caused this injury? Was there an incident, or is this just cumulative years of playing high impact contact sport?
Yeah, I mean, I had my first issue with a disc when I was 14, and I towards the end of my career, the last 6 or 7 months of my career at the Dogs was plagued by issues with this same disc and same area of my back, but never to this degree. And to answer the question of what was I doing, man, I was asleep and I woke up and it was, just completely wrecked. But having said that, it obviously has been an ongoing issue that I've dealt with for the last couple of years, but never to this degree. So it is particularly debilitating at the moment. But I'm hopeful that with some intervention in the next 12 hours, ideally, we see some improvement.
What is the standard treatment for a herniated disc?
Well, we don't know it's a herniated disc yet, but that's very obvious symptoms. So they're like, it's pretty sure that it is.
Yeah, you don't self-diagnose that.
I'll get an MRI this afternoon, and then I'll hopefully get an injection just to calm it down, stop the inflammation, as the medication that they put me on to start with hasn't seemed to be working. So one of the things about Danny is like when you're going through like any injury, right? Any injury's treatment, particularly if it's treated medically, is if you have it treated enough, the effects of that medication just wear off really quickly. Like you can imagine you take anti-inflammatories through your career, which I was always a pretty big proponent of not taking too many because there's very clear health effects that can happen from that side of things. But the problem is you're always incredibly inflamed when you're playing footy. So it's a balance of like long-term health versus short-term comfort and being able to play football at the best of your ability against the best athletes in the country, arguably the world. So anyway, enough of talking about me and my whims and worries. How are you, mate? It's been a few more weeks since obviously the men finished up, and then the girls are still running around, not to a huge degree of success, but we're out there.
Yeah, the girls are. It's so frustrating watching the girls because for those who listened to the AFLW preview episode, Berkey had me convinced we were going to win the flag, so it's been a very massive shock to the system. But overall, I'm okay. I've been enjoying the final series. I'm very much going for the Lions on the weekend. I've actually got nothing against Collingwood, Jordan Roughhead, Pat Lipinski. It would be great to see them be happy. But Collingwood fans are just really annoying. And friend of the show, Chad Licciardello, is massively going for Collingwood. He's furious at the Lions for the way they screwed us over in the Dunkley deal. So we've been having a bit of arguing on the text over the past week, but he sadly can't come on the show today because he's still filming his show, and he's got to watch the Republican debate for his other TV show, Planet America. But needless to say, I'm going to be chatting to Boydy for just a little bit here because he's in a fair amount of agony, and then we're going to be talking to some other friends of the show. So you get your content. Mostly we're going to be chatting about the Brownlow. I can give an exclusive here. I just spoke to Marcus Bontempelli outside the MCG. My kids and I lined up to get a photo with him at the footy festival. But, he knows who I am, and we had a chat about him potentially coming on the podcast next year. He was in really good spirits. My daughter said he should have won. He said thank you, although I think the way, I know my daughter's tones more than anything, she sort of said it in a way that maybe if you'd worked harder, Marcus, you would have won it.
Wow. I think that's the greatest stab in the eye that I feel about this whole thing is there's been a couple of years in the past where Marcus has had to shoulder the load amongst injury and poor form from the team. Let's say, and you go, well, he just didn't have a good run at it. He was completely healthy this whole year. The team obviously didn't perform well, but there was literally, it felt like not a single that Marcus could have done to put himself in a position where he was going to win. And that obviously gets to the major controversy of the whole thing, Danny. And look, this is not an indictment on the umpiring or the voting or the players who obviously received individual votes that perhaps they shouldn't. My concern is like this whole process that they have where for whatever reason we've decided that they shouldn't have statistics to look at after a game, which I thought was absolute bullshit when I heard it for the first time, right? Because there was always these theories about they don't get statistics, and then umpires have come out in the past being like, yeah, we check the stats at the end of the game. And I'm still not convinced it's as cut and dry as what they say it is. I reckon that there's been individuals who've seen statistics throughout the game. I'm sure. There's no way that they could totally avoid it. But the thing that really is an issue for me is for the last probably, as long as I can remember, probably since like the early 2000s, there have been players that have been anointed the next Brownlow medalist at early stages in the year. They've come off a good season. Maybe they missed out the year before by a couple of votes and they were a bit hard done by. And they start the season with 3 or 4 good games and they go future Brownlow favourite. And they start it and you watch the media just pick it up and run with it for the entire season. And what I can guarantee to you is, let's just say in a perfect isolated world that the umpires aren't reading the statistics at the end of the game. They are 100% reading the papers in some way, shape or form.
Yep.
And there is no doubt in my mind that bias that comes through the major papers and the online audience influences what they see on game day. Because it's like when it was like the kid who had long blonde hair when you played when you were a kid, right? Like you always notice them, they always seem to get more votes.
They were very.
It was like the Robbie McComb twins, who obviously one of which obviously plays at the Bulldogs now. Both him and his brother were star junior footballers, but they're identical twins. So these blokes would win best and fairest all the time because everyone thought they were getting 65 disposals a game. But the whole thing to me is it's just a blight on the process that goes on, that there's not a balanced scorecard for the way that they approach the voting system because it doesn't give the umpires a good chance. And it's an absolute, and again, take all of that aside, it's an absolute catastrophe that Bont hasn't won a Brownlow yet.
Agreed.
And I can say that with as little bias as possible because I've watched much football in my time. There's been very few players who have consistently influenced the game in such a large way. And I remember talking to you earlier this year, Danny, about the fact that, look, Nick Dacos is an absolute superstar. I still value the way that Bont plays the game more than I value the way that he does, just because I see the extra work that goes on as a big midfielder having to deal with all of the contact and physicality and the way he influences the game. So I'm absolutely devastated, mate. I felt a bit sick on Tuesday morning, to be honest with you. Not just because of the pain.
And were you looking at the stats being put around on social media? I mean, Lachie Neale got 3 votes for a game where he only got 20 touches, and where there were other people who got something like 33 in the same game.
That game, Danny, to be clear, Josh Kelly had 41 and Charlie Cameron kicked 7. and he got 3 votes.
So yes, you did. This is good. You're turning into a nuffy like the rest of us, Boydy. It's fantastic to hear.
I don't know if that stuff did my head in. I look to me, those 2 games that they highlight, obviously the Jason Horne-Francis one and the Lachie Neale one, it was just a shock to me because I don't remember ever in my history of watching the Brownlow, which is relatively religiously every year since I was probably 6 years old or 7 years old, I don't remember games that were that far off. Like, you always remember the games where they always used to make the joke, see Judd 3 votes, right?
Yeah.
That was a absolute typical thing. But at least he'd have 25 or 26, and it wasn't in the time where individuals had 41 or 42 disposals on a regular basis.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It does seem to be an outlier in this this year more than any of it. And that's only going to get worse and worse as people analyse the stats of every single game out there. You never went to a Brownlow though? Is that right?
I never got a vote. Never went to a Brownlow.
You never got a vote? Not even once?
Nah, probably never really deserved one, to be honest. I played my good work in games when they didn't have Brownlow votes, thankfully.
Yes. Good man. Yeah, you got more Norm Smith votes than most.
Look, there was probably 1 or 2 games where I thought I was a chance. But let's be honest, this is a midfielder fest.
Yeah.
And, I don't hate it. I think that, there was probably 1 or 2 years that I watched and I was like, Buddy Franklin, I remember one year had like 19 or 20 votes and maybe came 4th or something like that. And I was like, Buddy could have won it and would have been respected as the best player in the competition.
Yeah.
But again, they love these little fellas running around the middle of the ground, just getting easy handballs, mate. That's basically what being a midfielder is, eh?
So do you know what's the food like at these? I mean, your friends have gone. I mean, do you get to choose what you have? Is it a bit more of a new nutrient dense meal, or is it just like any corporate function? They just putting down the chicken and the beef?
It's at Crown. It's the exact same food.
Okay.
You eat at Crown. For those listeners who've never been, which I imagine quite a few of our patrons would have, if you go to a Western Bulldogs Best and Fairest, you'll eat the same shit they eat at the Brownlow, guaranteed. It's all sponsored beers. It's all, chicken or the beef. It's all catered, mass catered. Look, I think the thing that probably some people don't understand about the Brownlow is, there's always the famous stories of, Fev being a bit silly and players getting, on the Terps together, and it's all this massive fun party. I said to a friend of mine who's still playing the other day, I hate the Brownlow. Like, from a concept point of view, to have gone, not the medal, just the event. Like, it is so far not up my alley that I could not think of anything worse to do. Now, I'm sure my wife would have loved to go at some stage, but I wasn't good enough for that. Bad luck, Anna. But the thing that I said to guys in the past who have gone is, are you going to go and have a few beers with everyone afterwards? And they go, nah. I don't want to, we're going to have 1,000 eyeballs on us. I don't want to have all these awkward conversations with these people who think that they know us. It's always the media members and those sorts of people who end up having the big night because it's their grand final. But for the players, it's a nightmare. It's like going to a club function, except for every club's in attendance.
Wouldn't that give you a bit of solidarity? Like, you and Vlosten could go and just hide in the corner somewhere, and you could talk to a few Richmond nuffies for him. He could take a few Bulldogs nuffies.
Well, it's not openly ticketed, right? I mean, there's just the media members who go. Like, look, me and Nick can have a beer whenever we want. Really, like, that's the thing. It's you're sitting around at this thing, and look, and I've always said this. So, I obviously live in Albert Park, and the PA, the AFL PA is in Albert Park, and the typical place to go is Dundas and Fawcett, which is directly opposite. And if you go there, you'll run into 6 or 7 people from the AFL in one way, shape, or form. They're either like list managers or players or media people, whoever. I absolutely hated that and still hate that to this day, that there's this weird expectation of camaraderie between players who know each other because they've seen each other on the opposition versus you're actually friends with people. And it's always that awkward. I don't know if you get it, Danny, with the comedians, but it's this awkward, oh yeah, we both know who each other are. Do we wave or say hello or what's that like?
Comedians, we always have to talk to each other and ask how what gigs you're doing and who books that and how your sales and like dogs sniffing each other's asses, just making sure that no one's being more successful than you, or if they are, there's a justified reason for it.
That's it. And then look, it's not that I dislike AFL footballers. I've said 1,000 times publicly and privately how much I think they have to offer above and beyond what people actually think of them as footballers running around on the TV screen. But that's not the same to say that I want to see, the 900 players that are on the list every single year and say hello to all of them, It's a very different story. Anyway, look, I just think that my greatest fear, and this is a stupid fear and a rational one, is, I'm still very firmly in the boat that Bont's going to go down the greatest Bulldog ever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's going to be deniable at Clubland. But in 10 years and in 20 years, and whether this is important to him or not, I don't know. I imagine it is. It would be a guess, but I imagine that his legacy is important to him, just given how much work he's put in. But if people have this ability to dismiss his standing as one of the absolute greats of the game because he never won a Brownlow, that's going to really piss me off, especially because of stuff like this happening.
Yeah.
And again, it's not about individual accolades, but, there's many, many people I think that sit in the camp of, if we don't get Bont another premiership and if Bont doesn't get a Brownlow in his career, we've let him down in a way as a Bulldogs club.
Yeah, well, that is the narrative that we're all fearing, especially about the premiership. Brownlows, I'm sure Bont would be happy. I'm sure if you gave Bont the option between another flag and a Brownlow, I'm pretty sure I know which one he would pick.
Yeah, for sure. But that's the point, right? It's never a either or. They're not mutually exclusive. And if we put it this way, if we'd been playing in the grand final this week, guaranteed he would have won the Brownlow, right?
Yeah,
because he would have got more votes when we won more games. And there is certainly a bias that exists, and you're always pushing shit uphill if your team's a below 500 team or just above like we were.
And just quickly before I let you go on the grand final this week, who will you be cheering for? Will it be Roughhead and Lipinski, or will it be Dunks? And is Dunks the only ex-Bulldog person there? And Marcus Adams, even though I don't think he's playing.
No, he's done. I think Marcus finished the end of last year, if I'm not mistaken, or he's retired.
He's retired. I think
Jaden Shea's at the Brisbane Lions, the property steward up there now. He was the property steward of the Bulldogs for a long time.
Okay.
I ran into him recently. He's a good man. Look, to be honest, very, very base level, I'm cheering for a good game because last year was a fucking disaster. What a waste of a day that was. I could not stand watching those Geelong Paradians run around with their feathers in the air after winning by 95 points or whatever it was. That was a waste of my Saturday. Look, I mean, Paddy Lipinski is an absolute terrific human being, massive fan of the way he goes about it. Very disappointed that we obviously let him go and that we didn't give him the chance to succeed. At least in my mind, that he should have gotten at the Dogs. But look, I don't know. I mean, one of my best mates from school, McStay, unfortunately did his knee in an absolute heartbreaking fashion in the prelim. So he won't be playing. It's a tough one. Look, I don't have a huge feeling either way. I don't know. I don't feel Collingwood is the same team that I hated probably, 5 or 6 years ago, maybe. I've never really cared about Brisbane, mate. To be honest with you.
Wait till you deal with Collingwood fans again. Then you will remember what it's like, and that's why I am going for Brisbane in this encounter. But it's interesting you say you want a good game. We haven't had a good grand final since 2018 as a neutral, and that's the one that Collingwood lost. They were up by 5 goals at quarter time, lost by I think 5 points in the end. That was a ripper. But apart from Dom Sheed, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, look, to that point, I mean, there is nothing. Like, I watched 2018 with a bunch of friends out in Croydon, actually, and I remember standing there watching him run in for that set shot and going, if there's anyone that I played with growing up who's going to have a clear enough mind to kick a goal from this spot on the ground in this moment, as big as it is, it's Dom Sheed, because he doesn't think about a whole lot. He just plays footy. He's a real, he's a real soul of the earth, just see ball, get ball, kick ball, tackle, very simple footy. A very good footballer, obviously, but someone that I played some AIS footy with growing up. And look, I think it changes the tune of the whole day. Like, my sister came over last year. It was just the four of us, Rani, Anna, and myself, and my younger sister Tess, and we're sitting there like halfway through going, what are we going to do for the rest of the day?
Yeah.
And that's the worst feeling. Like, you want to be on your edge of your seat to the last moment, or at least the last quarter,
Yep.
and then be able to have a relaxing beer after the game and go, oh, that was great. How about that moment? How about this moment? What about this player making his legacy or his career? Who's going to have the breakout game, Danny?
Yes. If for one of the many reasons people like the Bulldogs, even if they don't support us, is we gave them a great grand final. 2016's, that would be replayed in the grand final marathon overnight. There's 2 points in it with 5 minutes to go.
Absolutely.
We give them the good stuff. That's why people like us. All right, Boydy. So will we get you back next week it'll be a Patreon episode next week. If you want to hear more exclusive, bit looser content, it starts at only $5 a month. Get involved, and you can hear me and Boydy every week. We've got a good crew on there who ask some very insightful questions, and every week Boydy names and shames a player who has crippling gambling debt. No, we don't do that. We do tell some true stories. And so get on board. Boydy, will you be all right by then?
Yeah, I'm very hopeful. As I said, I've got a small procedure I'm hoping to get done this afternoon, which should provide me with some relief. But I think the most important thing, Danny, is that, the Dogs have been irrelevant on the men's side for 5 weeks almost now, obviously, except for Bont, right? We were just riding the Bont coattails. And much like our season, we fell agonisingly short of where we wanted to be.
Yep.
Everything starts heating up next week, right? At the end of next week, things start to become trade period stuff. A lot of the players who have either suggested early trades or are getting delisted or in the sort of murmurings around where they can go, the information starts to flow next week. So I think we'll endeavour to have some really good inside word from maybe a couple of our key sources, Danny, to talk through what we hear is happening at the Bulldogs and where some of those players may or may not be going come season's end.
All right. Well, I'm going to talk to Mark Stevens next, and I'll see if he's got any early rumours about some good stuff for us. That's coming up right next on Danny Boyd. Boydy, you feel better. Say bye to our listeners for us.
See you, everyone. My daughter's just woke up, so it's magnificent timing.
I haven't got my game.
All right, you get your game face on.
Yeah. No, I thought we were just chatting.
Well, I like to do that thing. I don't know if you ever listened to Mark Maron's podcast. He just turns it on and always kicks in halfway through a conversation.
Yeah, no, well, good, mate. Well, we'll start it up now.
All right,
well,
sweet.
What do you want to start with? The fallout from the Brownlow? Or?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I mean, were you there? Do you get to go along?
No, I've missed the last couple of Brownlows, actually. I've probably done 12 to 15 over the years. Of course, Herald Sun and at Channel 7. There was a time there where I got to take a +1. That tended to dry up a bit in final years. I took my wife 3 or 4 times. She got bored with it. I took my uncle from Howlong up on the Murray.
Oh, that'd have been awesome.
He had a good night. That was the night Danger won. We ended up in the after party with Danger, all the Geelong people, some Chinese guy booked out the whole, I don't know, it's 16th floor, I think, in Crown, some sort of Chinese business baron. So we had a great time. I've taken my local handyman, a Richmond fan the night Dusty won. So, look, the Brownlow's a fantastic event. It does wear a bit thin after a while. I know a lot of people would get bored with it.
Yep.
You have to leave the room. You can get locked out. If you take a toilet break and an ad break, you've got to get out and back in again. Otherwise, you're locked out. So it's very regimented. But look, it's a great night, I think. And I really enjoyed the Brownlow this year. The only thing that they don't do, and they've probably run out of time, there's no real analysis with it. If you notice that in the old days, they used to say, wow, you know, we're still talking about that Lockie Neal game, where he shouldn't have got a vote, but that wasn't mentioned in the coverage.
Yeah.
You know, I think there should be a bit of a guy there, a stats nerd saying, hang on, this is a bit of a surprise. Just chip in or something along the bottom of the screen, the stats. I used to enjoy the analysis, say, after 6 rounds, some of the shocks.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more. I tell you another thing that's quite surprising. So my 9-year-old son, who loves stats and loves footy, this was a big night for him. But it got to about round 6, and it's his bedtime because he's not. And I said, it's okay. It'll be on 7+ tomorrow. You can't get a replay of it anywhere. Channel 7 don't have the rights to replay it. AFL.com.au don't have a replay of it. It's the only thing you can do is watch. You can watch an illegal stream on YouTube with other people talking over the top. It's actually quite surprising because I think it's a great night for kids to watch and relive the season.
I know. I agree. You haven't got the record on your Foxtel or anything.
No, we don't have Foxtel still. It's like Foxtel's like $130 a month, and
I know I'm getting ripped off at the moment. I just can't be bothered calling to say give me a better deal or whatever. I need to look into that. That's a good reminder. But it should be like iView with the ABC on the 7 website.
Agreed.
I agree. You should be able to go back and watch it. The night does drag a little bit. I'm not sure we need to do Mark of the Year, et cetera, I think that we get bogged down with that sort of stuff. I'd like more analysis, but it was a fantastic night. And the Bondi led for 15 seconds. I mean, this was such a Bulldog moment, wasn't it? You just knew. You knew it was going to be 3 votes, Al Neil. It's just the way that it rolls with the Bulldogs. And, it tends to be in big moments. The only time things have really fallen our way in the big moments for 2016 has been a lot of heartbreak, but I reckon that's what makes it fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you ask any St Kilda fan, they would have bite their hands off to just have that one moment. Let me ask. I'm
sorry to butt in there, but I reckon Bont was desperately unlucky. I got actually quite upset. I shouldn't get upset with these things.
You're allowed.
I just turned the tally off and went to bed. I was just flat because I think the night needed it. Lockie Neal being in Brisbane left it flat. I mean, he looked shocked. He looked half embarrassed to win it himself.
Yep.
He said, I'm glad I'm not there. Well, you don't want to be there, Lockie. I mean, give it away, mate. Seriously, I thought there should have been more emotion and joy there, and we missed out on a special occasion with the Bont not winning.
Agreed. What I wanted to ask you, Steve-O, was how many people do you reckon, I don't think anyone would know this for a fact except for the inner sanctum, how many people actually know who's about to win? Because clearly a few people know. Clearly the graphics department know at Channel 7 because they're bringing up the votes very quickly. No one's typing out those names. And, the way that they can, make sure Lockie Neal 3 votes is the last game of that round. So how many people do you reckon?
Yeah. I reckon 3 or 4 people, the people up on the desk there. Don't you love those people at the desk? 2 of them I didn't even recognise.
Yeah,
They're
agreed.
like the old Pat Blotto blokes on the Saturday night. What were they called? The adjudicators, or making sure everything was right.
Yep.
But they know 2 or 3 rounds in advance. I know there's been, a lot of conversations around the fact that you think the last round should be stage managed. We go through every game in order and then they fiddle with the votes at the end. I think for entertainment that's fine. But they do keep it very tight. There's no doubt that there's only 2 or 3 people know about it. And they're quite quick with the graphics, aren't they? There's no doubt about it. So it's just a handful of people. I believe Andrew Dillon would have known, Laura Kane, the head of footy there, and they're pretty good at shuffling the votes. Certainly added to the drama. And did we see the Armour Guard guys come in this year?
We did. Yeah. They came in early. They're
that's a relief.
It's interesting.
That's a key part of it.
The casting of those Armour Guard people is it's different ones every year. It's always the younger, attractive looking guards who get the Guernsey. It's not your grizzled old Liam Neeson types. It's your young Hemsworths, and actually there was I believe it was an Asian looking girl came in, and I think that's generally one of my favourite moments of the Brownlow. It's like WWE level wrestling, that fakeness.
Oh, it is. It's a tradition, and that reminds me of one of the best stories that. One of my best Brownlow stories actually happened in Queensland while we were in the hub, obviously in the bubble. About probably 20 or so journos flew up, paid for by the AFL to stay in that resort just out of Broadbeach near Carrara there. We were hemmed in for 2 weeks. But when we arrived at the Gold Coast airport, we were on the tarmac. We had to be bussed out of there. It was high security. And I remember Patrick Keane, who basically is Gil McLaughlin's right-hand man, used to be the media manager of the AFL. We're on the bus, about to get off, and he had a plastic, was it either a Coles bag or a Woolworths bag. And I said, what's in the bag, mate? He said, they're the votes. They're the Brownlow votes up to round 18 or wherever we were at that stage, maybe round 16. And I just laughed and giggled. I said, mate, high security there. So he walked off with his Coles bag. He had the Brownlow votes in a supermarket bag. So that was the craziness of the COVID situation. Across the tarmac he walked and he had to hand them in at that stage. And, of course, we had a crazy Brownlow up there. It was kind of, we're in the back of the car park there at Carrara.
And that was Lockie Neal's first?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I remember that the night Libba came up in something quite weird, which was unusual for him, in a white suit or whatever. But there was no audience there. Patrick Keane's got the votes in a bag. But the biggest heartbreak that I've ever suffered at a Brownlow involved Scotty West, of course, has been runner-up twice. It was in the year 2000. The Bulldogs people will probably remember this. I was sitting at a table sort of in the forward pocket there of the Palladium. Votes were level after Westie's final game. So he was level with Shane Woden. And Westie was next to the West Coast table. And I remember this clearly. They were all high-fiving him, hugging him, saying, mate, you've got this. Wowie didn't play well at all against us in the final round. In fact, we won the game. And I've given Westie the thumbs up. He's getting all emotional. He knows he's tied it with Woden. Check the stats. Woden's had 14 touches, very average sort of output. The Demons have been rolled. And guess what? 2 votes, S. Woden. Poor old Westie's deflated sitting in the chair. And I deep down, I don't think that Westie's ever recovered from that one. So it was very similar to the Neal one that got us. I think Neal had about 14 touches, got 3 votes versus GWS this year.
Yes.
But Shane Woden, he was level with Westie. Again, it was stage managed. It came down to the last game. Melbourne lost to West Coast in Perth. Well, he had about 14 touches and got 2 votes.
It is interesting how they.
So it should have been tied. The other one, of course, was Chris Grant. Should have had 2.
Of course,
You remember
97.
Ian Collins got involved, but the one that people forget in 1996, he would have tied with Michael Voss, but James Hird got the 3 in the final round against Essendon at the MCG. Now this gets forgotten. I was there that night. Chris Grant was clearly, I believe, the best player on the ground. So final round MCG 1996.
We lose by 20. It's a very gallant defeat.
No, we lost by a kick.
Oh, was it 6? Terribly sorry. Yes, you're right.
It was Steve Wallace's last game. The game was featured on the Year of the Dog documentary. I think you remember that one, that famous documentary. So Steve Wallace got chaired off. Chris Grant was sensational. BOG. In the last minute of the game, Mercury took a mark, somehow ran around and slotted a running goal. Essendon got up. There's no doubt that if Mercury hadn't have kicked that goal, Chris Grant gets the 3 votes and he would have won the 96 Brownlow with Michael Voss. So he would have had 2. So how unlucky is Chris Grant? That's the really the forgotten one in 96. And James Hird wouldn't be a Brownlow medalist. So I think Jason Watts was on fire that night, leading up hard and kicked about 4. Oh, Wattsy.
Oh, God, Jason Watts, that's a name I've not thought about for a while. He was number 25, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he wasn't certainly key forward size, but the way we were going in 96, we didn't have many options.
Well, Djakovic turned out to be a bust.
Yeah, he was. So, yeah, that's it. We've had some heartbreak at the Dogs in Brownlows. I was there the night Cooney won one. The Burger Ring one, of course.
Where people have the audacity to say he stole from Matty Richardson, but after hearing these stories, I'm going to fire back on a lot of those.
Yeah, so I had a few crownies with Coons that night, and when you look back at it, he was fantastic, I thought, that season, and we'll certainly defend that one. A lot of people group Cooney in with, say, the Wodens of the world and say he was a one-hit wonder. I think that's a bit...
that's very harsh.
He was fantastic. Oh, very harsh. So that was a good one. But and, of course, Libba won a Brownlow with 18 votes.
18? Wow.
Believe that? That's about half a season's worth in this era. He beats Silvani by a vote.
And Graham Wright, I believe, was the other one?
Yeah, Graham Wright. And I know I'm rambling on a bit about Bulldogs Brownlows, but the other one was Scott Wine, who beat Jason Dunstall. And I've had a lot to do with the Chief over the years. We're pretty good mates. And I love winding him up about that. I reckon Dunstall kicked about 145 goals that year.
Yep.
And lost by a vote for Scotty Wine. He said, well, he's a bloody ruckman. I kicked 145. Still flat the Chief.
Was Lockett the last non-midfielder to win the Brownlow in 87?
Pretty much, or Ginny Steins. What year was Steins?
Oh, but he's a ruckman's a midfielder. Steins is 91, and Scotty Wine's 92.
Yeah, but they're ruckman. Yeah, Scotty Wine 92. You're right. They were the last. They're the last of the Mohicans. And as I said about Liver, I mean, Stoss nearly won one as a key back. So, look, I think the Brownlow's in a little bit of lost a bit of its luster. I think it's lost on grand final week. I think it should be during that bye that we have to sit through before the final.
I think that's a good call.
Just getting lost. You know, there's a lot happening grand final. The lead up to the Brownlow's not as long as it probably should be. We should have 2 or 3 days of build up. We're not getting that because we sort of have the 2 finals and then we're straight into it. And I think it's time now that the umpires need some help, I think. And someone mentioned today, perhaps they could have a little an advisor with them each week just to say, well, remember, he played well, a couple of stats, because I think they're getting it horribly wrong too often.
Yeah. And don't forget, I think the goal umpires get involved as well. It's not just the field umpires there. So they,
surely not.
Spread the blame.
The boundary? No, it can't be the goal. They've got enough trouble seeing what's going on, particularly the guy in Adelaide. We don't want him giving votes. But I think that what next? We're going to have boundary umpires doing? I don't know.
Yes, little leaguers. A few of the players' dads.
The mystique of the Brownlow is all about the unpredictability. So I think we've just got to cop it on the chin. I reckon Bont was a bit lucky with a couple of his late. He got the 3 votes against Geelong in the last round. I don't think he was our best player that night. I thought it was Kalora Lobb.
Yep.
So it sort of swings and roundabouts. But Lockie Neal, he wasn't even in the All-Australian.
No, that's got to be the first time in a long time that's happened. I don't know if the stats in front of me on that.
I think it happened. I've got it for you. Matt Prittis.
Oh, okay.
West
It's
Coast, sort of won one from
2015, I believe.
Yeah, you're good with your numbers. I'm better at remembering the 80s and 70s and 90s than I am is that a sign of old age? That as a kid you remember these years a bit better? The first time I sat up and watched the Brownlow was 1980 when Kelvin Templeton won. I was so excited. Mum and Dad let me stay up till after 10 o'clock. That was sensational. How old were you when Big KT won his? You're still unborn.
I was unborn. I was born in 82, and I think the first Brownlow I remember being able to sit and watch all of it live would have been 94 when Diesel got up. Greg Williams. I remember watching all of that.
Geez, you've had a boring existence. You had to wait till 12-year-old to sit up late.
We'd normally tape it. We'd normally record it
right.
and I'd watch it the next day. So, but then I was allowed to. They didn't care so much once I was 12.
That's good.
Now
you're unleashed.
Now we're going into trade week. I know you don't work in the sports journalism world anymore. I mean, you're working for the National Party. I mean, did you hear? Is there any trades going around? Is Queensland going to take Dan Andrews on an unrestricted free agency pick just before?
I'm not sure his currency's quite there at the moment for Dan. I mean, they made it help. I think his currency's on the nose a little bit from a trade perspective, as good as his career's been. I'm actually on the steps of Parliament at the moment as we speak, so there's a bit happening here. But look, it's a fascinating time of year. I think we all laughed when they started that trade radio, which is basically around-the-clock trade news, and we thought it'd be overkill, but people can't get enough of it. In my time at the Herald Sun and Channel 7, if you're doing anything on the website, there's more clicks on trades than anything else. Trades and drafts now are almost bigger than the game itself, which really is extraordinary. It's taken a lot of the focus even away from finals now. I think as soon as your team's out, you start looking for hope, don't you? So
that's it.
It seems like it will be a busy trade period. You know, St Kilda are getting active. Looks like they're going to pick up Hill and Shield, Gresham to Essendon. And what do you think of the North Melbourne situation? I think we've gone over it, but we might create a monster at North. They might get too good within 2 years. They're getting too many picks. I think we need a pure draft.
Yeah.
Bannerman, what do you think?
Well, last time a team got this much help from the AFL, a few years later, they suddenly knocked off the Bulldogs in a grand final. So, yeah, I'm a bit annoyed about it. And according to a friend of the show, Chaz Licciardello, this might cost us pick 4.
I believe so, yeah.
Yes,
they can trade. So those picks can now be used to satisfy Gold Coast to get that earlier pick, which I don't agree with. I think if you're going to give help, last time they gave North help, they had to use it on mature players if they were going to trade. So that's just disadvantaging the Bulldogs who've got the picks there, want to use that, get down, and then be able to get Crofty's son, Jordan Croft.
Yeah.
So whenever you change these rules, add in other things, there's always the consequences that you don't think of. So I believe that after this, I've had enough of these sort of priorities and whatever. Let's just have a clean, pure system because footy's in good shape. I mean, North purposely went down the bottom. They picked, the draft picks haven't been great. That's their problem. So they'll get back there. My issue is that they could get back there a bit quicker than we thought.
And have you heard anything about, from the Bulldogs' perspective? Is there any? Has there been any? We're all worried about Tim English, Aaron Norton. Has there been any movement that you've heard from your sources?
No, I mean that's all on a holding pattern now. You've got Jamara too, so it's going to be a real challenge for the club, isn't it? You've got Ugle-Hagan, Bailey Smith, Aaron Norton, and Tim English.
Yeah.
All coming out at the same time. So if you're Sam Power, you're sitting there nervously at the moment. So if you add up the market value of those players, I've got English as a ruckman. If you took him on a 6 year, he's $1 million man.
Yep.
I'd have Norton at 800 to 900.
Yep.
So we're already up to around 1.8. To get a Jamara Ugle-Hagan, I think showing magical qualities at the moment, even at his age, is a 600 plus. And Bailey Smith is probably a 7 to 8. So they're big dollars, aren't they?
How do we keep that? Yeah, I'm glad this is the sort of stuff I can never get my head around.
Yeah, and of course then you've still got Libba going, you've got Bont. So what they've got is a great list. And when you look at it, it's insanity that they didn't play finals. But that's for another day, obviously. But it's going to be a real challenge to keep all these players. I think that Buku Karmas that potentially now may stay, which would be good news. Jordan Sweet, you can understand him going.
Yes.
Because he simply wasn't given a crack at it. I thought he probably should have been given a couple of looks teaming with Tim English. Just to have a look at that this year. So you can't blame him for going.
No. Yep.
And that means the Dogs are now going to have to go and find another mature age sort of ruckman to sit there as a backup. Because when you look at it, Tim English has been pretty durable apart from a couple of concussions. He's played pretty much all the footy.
I hear Brodie Grundy's available.
Yeah, he might get to the Dogs eventually. So that was a mess, wasn't it, in a lot of ways. And these days clubs aren't playing the two ruckmen. So it's a real wicketkeeper type theory, isn't it? Once if you're a backup wicketkeeper, you might have to wait a while.
Yeah, you don't end up being the Tim Zura of the Bulldogs.
No, the Chuck Berry. There's plenty of them around that didn't quite get there. At least Zura got there, but my old mate Chuck didn't quite get there to play for Australia. So I think the Dogs are well placed if they make the right decisions. They had some dead wood they needed to cut away at the bottom of the list. The bottom six is the issue.
Yep.
But I think the concern is that Libba's a year older, McRae's a year older, and Libba, McRae, Bont, all these guys, they didn't get injured this year. So, and I think we've become over-reliant on the Bont. And again, touch wood, the Bont doesn't miss many games. So imagine if, he did a hammy and missed the 6 weeks. That'd be a real test, I think, for the club.
Agreed. Yeah, we would be in all sorts. So are you feeling optimistic for next year, Steve-O?
Oh, of course I am very optimistic. I think there's no excuses. It should be finals again.
Yep.
And the reason I'm a little bit flat, Bannerman, is I look at the Collingwood and Brisbane sides, and on paper, and they've both got weaknesses. Brisbane are a bit wobbly at the G. Collingwood really haven't got a key forward. You look at it as a Bulldog person and say, hang on, we could beat these guys.
Well, we did beat Brisbane in round 3, and Collingwood we weren't too far off. Yeah, we did beat 3 of the top 4. So who will you be cheering for this weekend? Will you be wanting Josh Dunkley to get another premiership medal, or Lipinski and Roughhead?
Well, that's a tough one. I love Josh Dunkley. I like him as a player, but I still confused and bewildered by why he left.
Yep.
So all is not forgiven there. It's not a loving when you leave a footy club. And sort of, I don't really want either team to win, to be honest. I'm going to go for Brisbane for something different. I do admire Collingwood, but all the carry on. I think Brisbane will win. I just think they've got less weaknesses. And I mentioned the key forwards. I think a lot comes down to Brody Myercheck, of course, with McStay out.
Yep.
They just look a bit thin in the forward line. They're struggling to kick goals. And if you look at Brisbane, they've got the two talls, even though Hipwood and Danaher, they can go missing, but they've still got, the Charlie Camerons, they've got the other little blokes zipping around there. They're pretty well balanced, aren't they? They've got a good key defence and a pretty good, they've got a good midfield as well. So I think on paper Brisbane should win this game.
Yeah, I'll be cheering for Brisbane, and look, I'm very controversially, I'm for a twilight grand final, but I'm glad that this one's at 2:30 in the afternoon because we all know that Chris Fagan has to be in bed by 8 o'clock. So,
Pops will be gone early. We know that, but look, I do enjoy grand final day because it's hot. This year too, I think it's advantageous that it's not too late because I think a lot of people are going to be on the sauce, if you like, pretty early. I know I'm meeting some mates at 11:30 at a pub in Richmond and then walking off to the footy. So that's the issue. You've got to pace yourself.
Yes.
For a twilight grand final. I think an 11:30 build-up works into 2:30. I think that's doable. But just imagine 11:30 start in Richmond and then a 5:30 bounce.
If only someone will think of the binge drinkers.
Yeah, that's right. But it's exciting, Graham. It's hard not to get swept up in it.
Yeah.
And, but I noticed today that there's no concert this year, which it's slipped through to the keeper. So, of course...
Well, there's Kiss playing.
Yeah, but there's no post-game concert.
Oh, okay.
The post-match situation where
I hosted it.
Rewald.
Living End and Vance Joy we had. Did
you host it?
One of the best gigs of my life.
Oh, sensational. So we've seen all that sort of thing, and the Bulldogs, I've got a painting, a big photo in the hallway, actually at home, of the Dogs coming out in the dark after that to greet the fans. So that won't happen this year, which I think is a little bit sad, but at least we'll get to see Kiss. Which songs are you hoping for?
Oh, look, I don't own any Kiss albums, but I know a lot of their stuff, like Shout It Out Loud. That'll be the one, like the thing I loved about Robbie Williams last year is he knows how to play a crowd, and so will Kiss. So, I hope they do. This is the first I've thought about it. I hope they do God Gave Rock and Roll to You. It's a real cigarette lighters, whole crowd singing along. It's if you've seen Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, you know it's a true power ballad. I hope they do finish. Or they chuck it in the middle.
Yeah, Shandy maybe.
Yeah.
No, I like Lick It Up actually, which is a real hard rocking 80s one when they didn't have any makeup on.
Wow.
It'll be exciting. So hopefully the voice resonates well. I think they're getting a bit old, and it was sort of a second. I think it was going to be Crowded House, wasn't it? Well, I've got to say, that's a win for Australia.
Agreed.
We need hard rock on grand final day. We don't need Crowded House.
Nah.
Next year, let's get Def Leppard, and the year after, White Snake.
And then Aerosmith before Steve Tyler completely loses his mind. Steve-o,
that'd be great. I'm looking.
Thanks so much for coming on the show, and we'll have to get you back after trade week and analyse what the hell's happening at our club.
Yeah, we'll do. A pleasure to be on the show again, and hopefully to see you back at the footy next year as the banner guy, because all we can do is keep pushing.
Yeah, sure. Well, I know the president listens to this podcast, Kylie. I'm here if you need.
Good on you, banner man.
Because you do your podcast with Rowan Connolly now, so you're back on with your finger on the pulse, constantly commentating on media.
I don't know if I'm a finger on the pulse, but yeah, I do that podcast, a couple of radios here and there. But the podcast's been a bit of fun actually. So I did that this morning. And, we recorded that and we'll put that in. I don't know how they ever do it. And
that's the Footyology podcast to get the plug away.
It's the Footyology. So which Rowan's been doing for 6 or 7 years, I think, and this is my first year with him doing that. So it's been enjoyable. It's been good. It's been a bit of fun.
All right. Well, Rocket, you're the person we need to just ask bluntly, since you're still you're still watching a lot of footy. You know our club back to front. What the hell happened?
Yeah, it was disappointing, wasn't it?
Oh yes.
Some games that they shouldn't have lost. I think it's interesting watching. And this confirms my thought on the Western Bulldogs. I think where Carlton, their season turned around, they tweaked or changed their game plan, and teams have done that along the way. And I don't think the Western Bulldogs, I think they still play really relatively the same way, and they're easy to scout against, if that's the right phrase.
Yeah.
So I think their midfield's not as strong as it used to be. They used to be really strong in the midfield, and that was their go, handball and get out. They recruited some tools, as we know, but I think they just generally, and I think Melbourne fall into the same trap, just bomb the ball. I don't think they look to hit an advantage or kick an advantage for a teammate, which I think the Giants have really opened that up. I think the Giants' ball movement has been fantastic, and they really haven't got, except for Toby Green, haven't got gun forwards, but they do change the angles and do hit leading targets and do kick the ball the other side of the ground, etc. So give all forwards an opportunity. I think that's all really that I think they've just got to tweak. I don't think there needs to be massive change, but I think their ball going inside 50 probably just needs to improve.
Okay, so how much of a tweak, if you could give it a percentage, how much is it between, because obviously by this time next year we should be excited about Bont getting his second ever premiership medal after winning his first Brownlow. How much of a change do we have to tweak for that?
Yeah, I think there's some personnel positions that they obviously want to shore up. I think a couple of injuries at the wrong time, which all clubs get. I mean, Jones was a revelation halfway through the year, then him going down didn't help. But I think there's enough talent within and on the list that they can improve. But I think just changing, I reckon at least 10 to 20%. They need to change that.
That's a fair amount.
So, yeah, it is. And I think the game evolves, the game changes that quickly, and it even changes mid-season, as I said. And I think the Giants modified and tweaked theirs along the way. I think Carlton had a big change in theirs mid-season. That was, they used to go very conservative with the ball, go backwards, sideways. Then they played a forward momentum game after about round 12, where they got the ball in quickly into their forwards. So teams can do it. They can do it on the run, and I think the Dogs have got all summer to work that out.
Okay, all right. And about the Brownlow on Monday, I mean, you were coach when we last got our Brownlow with Adam Cooney. Is it a source of pride for the coach to know that you've got the best out of a player, or is it something you sort of just go, well done to them, but I'm here for the team?
Yeah, I think it's more the second one. I think there's a bit of pride in the individual, and the joy that that person, in that case it was Adam, he was only young at the time, and he was a pretty popular teammate. So I think really the whole group were really thrilled that he was able to win it. It was unfortunate for him with his knee, which really at such a young age to sort of succumb to that and sort of diluted his output from there on. But it was exciting for the players in the group. I think what you're probably alluding to was Marcus robbed of it
yes.
the other night.
I'm glad you used that word. So am I.
I'm not as look, everyone mentions, I think it was round 6 game with Lockie Neal getting 3 votes, but I think there's swings and roundabouts. I think every player, they probably say, I should or shouldn't have got these votes, or I should have got this one. I think it's a really hard job for the umpires to do. We scrutinise every decision they make because the game has become so big now, isn't it? It's such a beast as everyone scrutinises it with an inch of its life. And social media, that the umpires really got a tough job umpiring the game. Then they're supposed to go in and give the votes, and then we've heard that they don't get any assistance, as in access to stats. Now, some umpires have said they don't want to be controlled by stats, and that's a fair point. But I think we need to work out how we can assist them in their judgment after a game. Because unfortunately, with what's happened, the umpires are the ones that get criticised, and I think it's a bit unfair. So I think if we can assist them and help them in some way, the interesting with all that, and I think Lockie Neal was probably a little bit shocked as well because he's make All-Australian, but the top 6 players, they're in different order, of course, finished the first 6 placings in the coaches' voting.
That is interesting.
So you probably say that the umpires got it right, as in having that 6th place. Now, different order, and did Marcus deserve to win it, the Trucker or Dacos or Goulden or whoever, but they generally got it right. I think the other howler was the Jason Horn Francis getting 3 votes for 13 possessions and no tackles and 4 clangers. So whether they can work out, whether the umpires sit down after a game and pick their best 6 and then check the stats after that to probably circumvent any howlers, I think maybe it's a way. But I think we've got to talk to the umpires what assistance they want and what they can have to maybe make a bit more measured decision at the time. Yeah.
How did you go in the Brownlow? Did you get many votes as a player?
The best year I had was early 80s. I got about 13 or 14 one year, I think.
Did you get to go along?
Yes, went along. Yes, I got a couple of times. So that was all right. Then plenty of times as a coach, obviously. By the end of the time, you get sick of going to the Brownlow. It becomes a boring night. But,
especially when you got to fly into state.
Yeah, exactly. So, so they've made it up to be a really spectacle now, haven't they? It's sort of part of the DNA now. It's the younger people really enjoy that. And I think to the other element, and this, I don't know what I'm grasping at straws about, but I think with betting becoming so big and popular now with younger people, they're betting on every game and the boutique bets that they have and who gets the most votes here and all that. But they pick it up so quickly that all these questionable games, as in the number of votes, they're on social media virtually straight away. So we knew before the count about Neil not getting those votes in round 6 against GWS. So it is a big spotlight on it, that's for sure.
And who are you going to go for this weekend? You did work at Collingwood as an assistant, is that right?
I was director of coaching.
Director of coaching, that's it.
And then was football manager for 14 months before I went to the Gold Coast. So, I had the 2 roles. So I certainly enjoyed my time there. Who am I going to go for? Do you mean who do I think will win or who am I barracking for?
Both.
I think a lot of the indicators show that the Lions can win, and I'm probably hoping the Lions can win. But I just got a feel, I think the Pies have shown use the word trust, I suppose, probably the word you go to, but they've been in this situation so many times, as in tough, tight. They can defend well when they need to. They kick goals in a hurry at times. And it's just not quite there with the Lions, as in will player X play well, or can you trust him in a big game? So they'd be a lot more contested than usual. I think the pound for pound and player for play, you probably lean a bit towards the Lions. But I'm going around in circles, but I'm going to pick the Pies by about 10 points.
Yeah, I don't know if I've mentioned this on the broadcast yet, but yeah, I'm going for the Brisbane, but I think Collingwood will win. So, Rocker, are you keeping footyology going during the AFLW season and the off season, or are you taking a holiday soon?
No, we're doing one next Monday as a review, and that's it for the footyology. As far as I've been known, whether I've just been put on the interchange bench and replaced, I'm not too sure, but I don't think he keeps it going.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, we will. We're going to keep going, so we will hope. But we'll probably chat to you next year. You can enjoy the summer, and hopefully we'll get you on next year, and you can analyse the tweaks to the game plan, which have put us undefeated for the whole season.
No worries at all, Danny. Looking forward to it, mate. All the best.
Thank you, Rocket. I'm sick of all these people who have proper opinions and are well educated about footy and I need another nuffy. Kev Hillier, you are the nuffy of all nuffies. You were the man. I just read Too Tough to Die, the book about the fight back in 1989, and you hosted
Kerry Gordon's book,
Kerry Soren's book. The Bulldog Tradition, as we call her, and you got to host the closing victory party concert. How was that?
Yeah, it was great. It was fantastic. It was the best ever.
Who was on?
We weren't sure if we were gonna have the money, and we thought that would maybe get us over the line to get the money by putting the concert on. But we had the money before the concert, which changed the whole attitude of the concert.
Oh yeah,
the concert then went from being a fundraiser to being a hellraiser, and it It was fantastic. It was great because we were able to stand there, and as MC, I was able to stand there, and I did do a couple of lines about Ross Oakley and about the AFL and about the competition that I wouldn't have done if we were still fundraising, because it was, as Ted so beautifully said, because it was stick it up 'em time, and we could, because we knew we were going to survive, we went for it. It was fantastic. The lineup of talent at Tina Arena, because Peter Hoyland, who's a mad Bulldogs man and was running the Grain Store Tavern and managing acts and all that, he was the catalyst to get all the talent together. So he and I worked really hard on that and got all these people. Tina Arena. Weddings, parties, anything.
Nice.
Gee whiz, who else do we have? Ernie Sigley did a great spot for us. Comedians coming from everywhere. Richard Stubbs. I'm trying to remember who else was there.
I think Pete Rosethorn was mentioned.
Yeah, Pete did it. Yeah, he
great
did too.
comic.
Yeah, he was great. Yeah, there was everyone just went, yeah, I'm there. Hand up, I'll do it. And oh God, it was good. And the end when we did celebration and everyone got on stage and the crowd, it was fantastic. It was a really great night. Really great night.
Well, we need those positive memories because just recently being a Bulldogs fan has been full of negative and frustration memories. What do you want to talk about? The end of season slump or Bont being robbed in the Brownlow?
Well, I hate the Brownlow.
Do you?
Oh, well, I hated this year's Brownlow
no.
for a number of reasons. One being that Bont didn't win, and that cutaway shot when they called the 3 votes for that was so painful to watch.
Yeah,
because he's such a fabulous human being, Bont, as well as a fabulous footballer. So that annoyed. And the other thing it does is they play the highlights package and remind you of all the bloody games you should have won that you didn't.
You actually,
the GWS game, and
you reminded me. And they didn't show every match from every round. And one they missed out on was us beating Richmond at the G. I was like, come on, I want to see us win that.
Oh, okay, I must have missed that.
That was
one.
round 5, I think. Like it was Easter Saturday when we beat them.
Okay.
In the wet.
The ability to fall into a coma during the Brownlows is very easily done.
Yes.
And you don't need to have a drink or do anything else. You just need to be sitting on the couch, and all of a sudden you'll find yourself in a coma. Sorry, the McLaughlin brothers might be the nicest blokes in the world, but I wrote an ode to them.
Oh,
to the tune of the Leyland brothers. I can't sing, so I'll read to you. I'll just tell you what I came up with. Tune in all over the countryside. Watch the McLaughlin brothers. Counting the votes from 3 to 1. Can't watch the McLaughlin brothers. Gill's a Dill and Hames the same. They've done their best to stuff up the game. And I can't tell you the last line. It's not, I think you know where my sentiments were going.
I dare say. I'm going to strongly disagree because Hamish got me my first job on TV, so I love him. But yeah, no, you're right. Gill's a Dill.
I'm sure he's the loveliest bloke, but sorry, that as a coupling was not working for me. Yeah, look, I was heartbroken for Marcus, but that's the Brownlow. I mean, let's face it, if Nick Dacos hadn't missed the last 3 games, he probably wins the Brownlow.
Oh, yes, I'd say quite easily as well. And that's the actual sad thing because everything went right for Bont. No injuries, carried the team. You could see Nick Dacos winning 3 or 4 Brownlows over the next few years.
I can see Bont winning a couple, to be honest. I mean, he's gone close enough now. I hope he doesn't become that player that just misses out. That always misses out. I mean, he's not Terry Wallace, who went in as outright unbackable favourite and didn't get a vote the year that he was.
Oh, what year was that
for the medal? It was in the 80s. I can't remember the exact year, but he was unbackable favourite to win it, and he did not poll a vote. Which Player's a very proud man, and I think he might have won whatever the equivalent of the Players Award was at that stage, which I think might have been the Herald Sun Award or whatever it was. He didn't get a vote in the Brownlow. And Scotty West was so stiff there in his little run with Brownlow votes. And, we've had our share of surprise wins. I would have thought 1985 when I was moving house and watching the television at the same time, watching Brad Hardy win the medal was one of the great surprises. Didn't expect that one. Didn't see that one coming.
Yeah,
Lila, when he did his knee towards the end of that 1990 season and finished up winning. Scotty Wine winning was probably one that we we'd hoped, but weren't sure was going to happen. Coons was a surprise.
Have we still won the second most amount of Brownlows? I know the Swans were ahead of us, and that was pre-Goodsy.
We were number one at one stage. I've got a poster somewhere here of signed of all the Brownlow medalists, Roundy and Kelvin and everybody. And that was up to and including Scotty, I think, in 92. See, Chris should have won that one in.
Oh, no, 97. I know. We're all outraged. All right, I've gone through these with Steve-O. But you've been around the Bulldogs for so long. You've been there through the peaks and the troughs and everything. How are you feeling for next year's men's season? I mean, we just spoke off air about the AFLW season. We should mention that, I like what they're doing in the midfield. I like what they're doing in defence. Once they cross that 50-metre line, my God, it's what is happening?
They couldn't hit a cow on the backside with the frying pan at the moment, unfortunately, which is terrible. But it's so sad for Nathan Burke and the girls because Burke's such a great bloke and a terrific coach, and I really thought they're going to do very well this year.
Yes,
I thought I've been quite confident and sort of bullish in thinking that they were going to do really well. 4 games down in a 10-game season, that's going to be really hard now.
Yeah,
really hard.
But are you going Friday night to the tomorrow night? By the time this goes to air, tomorrow night at what day? It's today, Wednesday or Thursday? Today's Wednesday. Anyway,
Oval.
You going to Whitten Oval?
Back to the Whitten Oval. I cannot do it because I have work commitments. But the Whitten Oval, I have so many great memories of football games at that oval. For many, many, many years. The immediate one that springs straight into my head is Jim Edmund, Simon Beasley, Collingwood, Graham Allen. That day,
I've seen that match.
One of the best days.
It's on YouTube. Anyone under the age of 40, you're gonna have to watch it on YouTube because it genuinely is such an amazing match.
And look out for that special appearance by Dr. Jim Edmund, who was the captain, giving a mental health assessment to the Collingwood player after he kicked the ball across the goal. Poor old Gubby Allen. He's never lived that down. No, that was a great day. But there's so many great days, and it's so good to have footy back. I saw the oval in terms of the actual surface is beautiful.
Yeah, the players have been talking it up.
It's magnificent. That'll be something to see tomorrow night.
I wonder if they'll let us have a kick on the ground afterwards with the new. Surely they will.
You'd think so, but the one thing discovered at the VFL Grand Final on the weekend, which was played at Carlton's ground, was that you're not allowed on the ground. It's community football, but we don't want the community on the ground. so we'll see what happens with. Hopefully, they will let people on the ground. I hope they do.
So, Kev, you're still doing the Two Dogs podcast. Give it a plug. I mean, we're all the Bulldogs podcast family. You got any? What do you got coming up?
Coming up, I'm going to do a 60s special edition. I've got an interview that I did a couple of years back with Johnny Schultz, which talks about John's coming to the club and his time at the club and everything that happened up until it was just after the 2016 grand final win. So that's going to go up fairly shortly, along with some of the really big characters of the 60s who I still see every week in the past players' room because that's the room I do these days, and they're all in there and they're still all chipper and up and about, the Joslins and the Slatterys and the Bryants of the world, who are all still in there every week watching the doggies and cheering them on. They're a terrific bunch of blokes. So we'll do one of those, and you can go back and have a listen to some of the old ones. We've got all sorts of terrific stars of the past in there, and even the late great Barry Rounds on one of the podcasts.
Yeah, this is what I need because for people of my vintage, and we don't know enough about the 60s and 70s Bulldogs players. They don't get enough coverage. So, yes, I can't wait to deep dive into that. Thank you, listeners. That's the end of our Brownlow Autopsy episode, finishing with a fellow Nuffy
test. Do I qualify as King Nuffy of?
I don't know. You're a bit too sensible at times, Kev. I know what you're like when the mics are off. So.
It's the first time anyone said that to me in about 30 years.
Well,
I'm a bit too sensible.
Maybe we should get you back on after trade week, and we'll see what your thoughts are after we potentially lose some beloved.
Keep the good ones.
Yes.
Thank you, mate. Always good to catch up with you. Always good to see your happy, smiling face and hear happy, smiling voice.
Yeah, it's got all good. All right. Well, I hope your team wins on the weekend. And finally, who are you going for? Collingwood or Brisbane?
Got a Collingwood supporter in the house, so I think they'll win anyway, and I think they'll win by 13 points, and I think Isaac Quainer will win the Norm Smith medal, and I think Joe Danaher will kick the first goal.
Okay, yeah, these are good. That's good to know your multi on there. I'll tell you one thing.
I'm not allowed to bet on the footy. I don't bet on the footy.
I don't bet either, but I'll tell you what, though. This is just totally off topic and probably not the vibe we should finish off. Isaac Quaynor, my God, he's handsome. He's like Hemsworth level handsome. He's ridiculous. Well, you know, I'm happily married to a female woman, but my God, he's hot. All right, we'll wrap it up there.
Norm Smith medal making him even more attractive around his neck on Saturday night. Who knows?
Oh, see him in dog's
I
colours.
hope it's a good game. I hope it's a good game. It's going to be hot, so I hope it's a good game.
I do too. All right, thanks, Kev. Hope your team wins. See you next time, Dogs fans.
Hey there, doggies.
I gave my childhood to that roar of the red, white and blue sea, and the knowledge that you had to love the Bulldog boys and me. 20 years on, I feel that longing hanging in September air. But the reason I go every week is to pretend you're still there. And they will find the glory one day, and I will throw it at your feet. It's a long, long road they're running for you, the dogs of Footscray streets. It's a long, long road they're running for you, the dogs of Footscray streets.